I'm a man, but for 3 years, Thomas Grant treated me like a plaything he kept locked away. The night Thomas got engaged, I landed myself in the hospital. He ditched his fiancée and rushed over, demanding to know what kind of scene I was making. I didn't say a word, just stared at him in confusion. It was only when the man who'd gone to buy me flowers finally returned that I timidly hid behind him. I asked in a small voice, "Who is this guy? Why does he sound so aggressive? Can you please not get engaged to her?" Thomas acted as if he hadn't heard me. He swiftly stripped off my pajamas and pushed me down onto the bed. It wasn't until I turned my head to dodge his kiss and ground out his name through clenched teeth that he stopped. Thomas propped himself up, looking annoyed. "It's just a strategic marriage. It's not like anything real will happen between us. Then will you let me go?" My question was met with silence. A barrage of kisses fell again, starting from my neck and trailing downward. No matter how much anger and hatred I felt, my struggles eventually faded, leaving me without any strength. I could only let him take what he wanted. When he was finally satisfied and got off me, I asked again in a hoarse voice, "You're engaged now. Can you let me go?" Thomas glanced back at me. He said nothing, but I already understood. Impossible. Even if he was engaged to another woman, he would never let me go. He would keep me imprisoned by his side, tormenting me. The violent encounter had left me utterly exhausted. I lay in bed, watching through half-closed eyes as he walked into the bathroom. The steady patter of the water was hypnotic. I hadn't been able to sleep since I'd heard about his engagement, but now, miraculously, I drifted off. In my dream, the accident happened all over again. When I first started college, I was dirt poor. So poor that affording 3 meals a day was a challenge. When I wasn't in class, I spent almost every waking moment trying to find ways to make money. One night, after my shift, I was biking back to campus and accidentally hit someone. It was 100% my fault. The other party demanded $50,000 in compensation. But I didn't have the money. The man was aggressive, looking like he might hit me at any second. "No money? Ask your parents. If they won't give it to you, borrow it. My buddy's leg is broken because of you. 50 grand is getting off easy." But I didn't have parents. My tuition before college was paid for by kind donors, and there was no one in my life who would lend me $50,000. Just as I was at my wit's end, Thomas Grant appeared. He caught the man's fist as it flew toward me and pulled me behind him. "It's just 50 grand. Is it really worth getting violent over?" That was the second time I'd seen him. Without hesitating, Thomas transferred the money to me. As the man walked away, overjoyed with the cash, I was still too stunned to react. Took a long moment before I remembered to thank him. Thomas waved it off. "Don't mention it. 50,000 is nothing to me." It was true. For a trust fund kid like Thomas, 50,000 was pocket change. The first time I saw him, people had told me he was rich and not just regular rich. It was the beginning of the semester, and I was giving the welcome speech for the new students. Thomas was sitting in the front row. He had a sharp, piercing gaze that was hard to ignore. Our eyes met. I found myself staring at his flawless face for 2 seconds before quickly looking away. As I walked off stage, I passed by him. The person next to him looked at me and said, "For no apparent reason, this year's freshmen are pretty interesting." I felt Thomas's eyes sweep over me too. A corner of his mouth lifted. He gave a slight nod. Indeed. Thomas looked down at the wrist I had grabbed, a little confused. "Something wrong?" "Yeah." I pulled a pen and paper from my backpack and wrote him an IOU. "I'll pay you back." Thomas took the note and raised an eyebrow. "So when do you plan on paying me back?" I clutched my backpack, suddenly nervous. "As soon as I graduate and get a job." "You're a freshman now? So I have to wait 4 years?" He tilted his head, his tone laced with meaning. "If I have to wait that long, I might have to charge interest." I nodded without a second thought. "No problem. I'll pay you back at the standard bank rate." But Thomas just said, "I don't need the money." He watched my stunned expression and smiled. "Can you cook?" "Yes." "Then cook for me. Consider it interest payments." I hesitated. "Just cooking? and you can tidy up the place a bit if you're willing. So he was looking for a maid. But I was still wary of him. It wasn't until Thomas said, "My parents like to meddle in my private life. I need you to promise you won't let them buy you off," that I nodded firmly. I won't. After that, I'd go to Thomas's off-campus apartment after my classes to cook and clean for him. After taking care of him, I'd rush off to my part-time job to earn living expenses. That routine only lasted for 3 months. Thomas invited me to his birthday party. A crowd of people surrounded him, forcing drinks on him, and I was pressured into drinking a lot, too. Eventually, everyone was passed out on the floor. I was the only one semi-sober enough to get Thomas back to his apartment. As I was about to leave, Thomas suddenly grabbed my wrist and pushed me down on the sofa. His eyes were half-lidded as he brought his lips to my ear. "Larry, you don't have to live such a hard life." His warm breath tickled my ear. I flinched. Thomas must have been really drunk. His voice was deep and husky, with a seductive edge. "Seeing you like this, it breaks my heart." My heart suddenly started racing. Years later, I've forgotten how we started kissing, or how we ended up in bed. All I know is that from that day on, my relationship with Thomas changed. He wouldn't let me work part-time jobs anymore. He was always clinging to me, being affectionate. We could spend a whole afternoon just kissing. After we made it official, Thomas gave me a credit card. But I never used it. I still worked part-time jobs behind his back. Dating Thomas made me even busier than before. To pay back the $50,000, I gave up a guaranteed spot in the grad program after graduation and started looking for a job everywhere. Out of my 5 roommates, 2 were going to grad school, and the others had all received job offers. I was the only one hitting dead ends. Seeing how anxious I was, my roommate tried to comfort me. "Our department is top tier in the industry, and you're number 1 in our major. It's really weird that these companies are rejecting you. Maybe you should ask Thomas about it?" At the time, I didn't catch his hidden meaning. Until one day, I accidentally overheard Thomas's friends talking. Thomas spent $50,000 to make our department's campus heartthrob his housekeeper for 4 years. Not just a housekeeper, he has to sleep with him, too. Who's more of a badass than our Thomas? A wave of snickers and jeers followed. "Dude, Thomas, last time you put the word out that no company was allowed to pass his interviews, you weren't talking about your little housekeeper, were you?" The private room was noisy, but I heard Thomas's typically lazy voice cut through. "Yeah, that's him." "Damn," someone laughed. "The car accident that broke that guy's leg was a trap you set for him, and now you won't even let him get a job. Are you planning to keep him as your bird in a gilded cage forever?" Thomas toyed with his glass, pretending to think. Forever is a stretch. For now, he's just fun to have around. That one word, fun, made my blood run cold as I stood outside the door. "Larry?" When Thomas woke me, I was still dazed, unable to tell dream from reality. In the dream, I had been gritting my teeth in anger. Now, staring at the face looming over me, I threw a punch without a second thought. Thomas didn't have time to react. He sucked in a breath and backed away from me. He rubbed his left cheek, frowning at me. "What's your problem?" He had just come out of the bathroom with only a towel slung low on his waist. The sudden movement had made it precarious. I watched as Thomas ripped the towel off, tossed it aside, and started coming toward me again. I put all my strength into that punch. Afraid he'd retaliate, I quickly explained in a cold voice, "I had a nightmare. I didn't see it was you. If Thomas had just hit me back, tit for tat, I wouldn't have been afraid. In the years I'd been locked in this villa, I'd lashed out at him countless times. Thomas never hit back. He just used his other, filthier methods to get revenge. The earlier assault had already exhausted me. I was terrified he would start again." Hearing my explanation, the dark look on Thomas's face quickly faded. A smile returned as he pounced on the bed, hugged me, and planted a kiss on my cheek. "What did you dream about?" As he kissed me, his hands started to wander again. I didn't say anything more, just impatiently pushed him away and turned my head to the side. Thomas seemed to be in a good mood tonight. He didn't get mad that I was giving him the cold shoulder, and he didn't try to force me. He stood up, towering over me unabashedly. I have a function to get to in a bit. You be good and wait for me to come back." Seeing my ears turn red as I looked away, Thomas smiled smugly. "It's been 7 or 8 years. You've seen it, touched it, tasted it. How are you still blushing?" I closed my eyes and buried my face in the covers, silent. After the rustling sounds of him getting dressed, Thomas walked back to the bed. "Larry, don't overthink it. It's just a strategic marriage with her. Nothing is going to happen." A moment later, his footsteps faded away. When I heard a car start downstairs, I finally threw off the covers and took a deep breath. I didn't have a phone. Thomas didn't allow me to have any communication devices. So all I could do was lie in bed, watching the hands of the clock go round and round. 8 o'clock. Thomas's engagement party started at 8. There was a cat meowing at the door. Ignoring the pain in my leg, I walked out of the room barefoot. As soon as it saw me, the little cat pounced, wrapping itself around my leg and meowing nonstop. The housekeeper downstairs heard the noise and looked up at me. "Are you hungry? The young master asked us to prepare dinner for you before he left." The housekeeper then glanced at my leg. "It's about to rain. If your leg is hurting, I can have someone come massage it for you." I shook my head, handed the cat to the housekeeper, and went back into the room. A fierce wind howled outside. The air was thick with the dampness that comes before a storm. I looked down at the ground below. It was pretty high. A jump might actually kill me. In the 3 years Thomas had kept me here, I had tried all sorts of ways to escape, but I'd never tried jumping from here. I used to think that nothing was more important than life and death. But now I was starting to think differently. Thomas was getting engaged. I truly didn't understand why he was still keeping me locked up here. And what did that make me? He used to say he'd let me go when he got tired of me. I had no idea when he would ever get tired of me. This endless, lightless existence was the most despairing thing of all. Lightning streaked across the sky as I perched on the windowsill. Just as the deafening clap of thunder reached my ears, I landed. No one noticed I had jumped. Swallowing the cry of pain in my throat, I ignored the sharp agony in my left leg and scrambled over the flower bed to climb the wall. Right now, the pain didn't matter. As long as I wasn't dead, that was enough. I had hoped tonight's downpour would buy me more time to escape. But the housekeeper and the villa's security guards quickly discovered I was gone. They immediately gave chase. I dragged my injured leg, running forward with all my might. When headlights suddenly appeared in front of me, I rushed toward them without hesitation. I was going to ask for help, but I never expected the car to drive straight at me. Before I blacked out, I managed a bitter smile. My luck is just the worst. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. A doctor was talking to a young man whose back was to me. He's not in any serious danger, but he hit his head. There might be some memory loss. The first person to notice I was awake was the villa's housekeeper. "You're finally awake, sir. I've already called the young master. He told us to take you home first." I looked at him for a moment, then asked in confusion, "Who are you?" The young man now turned to look at me. Hearing me say I didn't recognize the housekeeper, a smile played on his lips. He spoke to the housekeeper with a taunting tone. "He doesn't know you. If you try to take him now, I'll have to call the cops." Then, saying I needed to rest, he shooed everyone out of the room. The hospital room instantly fell silent. The young man stood at the foot of the bed, smiling at me. "Aren't you going to ask who I am?" I hesitated for a second before asking, "Who are you?" The man raised an eyebrow, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "My name is Alex. I'm your husband." Outside, the rain fell in sheets, showing no sign of stopping. I was alone in the hospital room. It was quiet, perfect for an escape. Unfortunately, my left leg was in a cast, and my right leg, which had been broken before, ached in the rainy weather as if it were being eaten by worms. I could barely stand, let alone run. I closed my eyes, exhausted. I kept turning the name Alex over in my mind. It sounded familiar. I was sure I'd heard it somewhere before. I just couldn't place it right now. And the housekeeper seemed to know him. "Alex, Alex." As I thought, my mind started to slow, then grind to a halt. I don't know if it was because I'd hit my head in the crash or because I'd just taken medication, but I was suddenly incredibly sleepy. I had just dozed off when the door to my room was suddenly kicked open from the outside. The massive crash startled me awake. Before I could even get my bearings, a force yanked me out of bed. "Larry, are you trying to force me to break your legs so you can't run away anymore? So you have to lie in bed and let me fuck you? Is that what it'll take for you to finally learn to behave?" The violent movement tugged at my injured leg, and a cold sweat instantly broke out across my body. Before I could even get a clear look at the person in front of me, he tossed me back onto the bed like a piece of trash. "What the hell is your problem?" "Problem?" I looked at him, confused. It wasn't until the rickety door was pushed open again that I finally unclenched the fists I had hidden under the blanket. Alex was back. He was holding a bouquet of sunflowers, still damp with rain, and walked straight toward me without looking at anyone else. Even though the room had suddenly filled with people, he wasn't surprised. In fact, his face was unnervingly calm. Alex held the sunflowers out to me. "I saw someone selling these by the hospital entrance, so I bought you a couple. Do you like them?" I stared at the flowers, hesitating for a moment before giving a numb nod. The word like had barely left my lips when a hand shot out, snatched the flowers, and threw them on the floor. "Alex, what the fuck? Am I invisible to you?" The cold, menacing voice sent a shiver down my spine, conjuring up a flood of degrading images in my mind. I flinched, my back tensing up. Well, if it isn't Mr. Grant. Compared to my frayed nerves, Alex was impossibly relaxed. He acted as if he'd only just noticed Thomas, raising an eyebrow with a slight smile. His gaze slowly drifted from Thomas's face down to his feet. The sunflowers, bright and beautiful moments ago, now lay scattered and trampled on the floor. Those flowers were pretty expensive. $30 a stem. "Will you be paying cash or card, Mr. Grant?" Alex's tone was light, but his eyes held daggers for Thomas. "I'm taking him with me." Thomas's sudden declaration made my nerves tighten even more. Alex's tone was still nonchalant. "I don't think so." He looked at Thomas. "Because he's my boyfriend." "Your boyfriend?" Thomas's voice was filled with disbelief. He turned to stare at me, his gaze cold and vicious. "When did you two meet?" The question wasn't for Alex, it was for me. But I was just as confused. When I first woke up, Alex had said he was my husband. I thought he was just joking. "Aren't you overstepping a bit, Mr. Grant?" Alex pulled me toward him, shielding me from Thomas's scrutinizing gaze. "Do I need to report to you when I started dating my own boyfriend?" He then let out a sneer. "Besides, I'm out. I like men. You, of all people, know that best, Mr. Grant. No need to act so surprised. Since I'm out, isn't it perfectly normal for me to have a boyfriend now?" Thomas paused for a second, his glare at Alex growing even darker. "It seems you haven't forgotten what happened. So what gives you the nerve to provoke me again?" The words seemed to trigger something in Alex, and the smile on his face slowly stiffened. The two of them stared at each other in silence. Their faces were calm, but beneath the surface, a storm was raging. The room was quiet for a long time, so long that a dull ache started to throb in my head. Finally, I heard Thomas speak. "Alex, he's my—" Before he could finish, Alex cut him off. "Yours?" Alex repeated his word with a meaningful tone. He turned back to me. "Larry, do you know Mr. Grant?" Two pairs of eyes suddenly locked onto me. I clenched my hands hidden under the blanket, feigning calmness as I shook my head. "No." Then I shrank back behind Alex a little more. "Who is this guy? Why does he sound so aggressive?" At my words, a flicker of anger crossed Thomas's face. He reached for me, but Alex blocked him. "Mr. Grant, my boyfriend says he doesn't know you." Alex's tone was defiant. "Please take your people and leave. My boyfriend needs to rest." He kept repeating the word boyfriend, and the more Thomas heard it, the colder his expression became. That day, Thomas took a call, and then the housekeeper whispered something in his ear. After that, he left with his men. The next couple of weeks in the hospital were a rare chance for me to breathe. The rain that had been falling for days finally stopped. Alex pushed me downstairs for a walk. The sky was exceptionally blue after the rain, the leaves a vibrant green. A sparrow landed on the lawn nearby. The moment someone got close, it fluttered its wings and flew away. I watched the sparrow, a look of envy in my eyes. It must be nice to have wings. Alex had just taken a call and stepped away for a moment. I gently moved my casted left leg and, holding onto the wheelchair, tried to slowly stand up. Just as I tilted and was about to fall, Alex returned in the nick of time. He caught me, saving me from a close encounter with the ground. Holding me, Alex suddenly frowned and asked, "You look like you're at least 6 feet tall. How are you so light?" Then he seemed to think of something, relaxed his grip slightly, and casually changed the subject. "Your leg isn't healed yet. Don't move around so much." I was so close to him now that I could smell the scent of sage on him. It was nice. I had smelled it on Thomas before, too. Thinking about what he'd said to Thomas a few days ago, and the strange tension between them, I lowered my eyes. I couldn't help but ask, "Alex, who are you really?" Alex paused in the middle of placing me back in the wheelchair. I could feel the slight vibration of his chest. He was laughing. He had already put me back in the wheelchair but was still holding me. "You lost your memory. You even forgot me?" Alex's voice was very soft, his tone like he was coaxing a child. "Baby, I'm your husband. Your one and only husband." He then gave a playful wink. Alex and Thomas were complete opposites. Thomas was moody and unpredictable, always carrying himself with an air of superiority. But Alex was gentle and polite, occasionally making harmless jokes, a true, well-mannered gentleman. It was hard to believe someone so good-natured could loathe Thomas so much, to the point of utter disgust. Sometimes I wondered what had happened between them in the past. Seeing me silent, Alex stepped back and asked jokingly, "You don't believe me?" I was about to speak when a sudden force yanked him off me. Caught off guard, Alex was thrown onto the nearby lawn. We both looked up at the same time at Thomas, who had appeared out of nowhere. Well, Alex said, getting to his feet and brushing the grass off his pants. "Mr. Grant is here again? You just got engaged. Shouldn't you be with your fiancé instead of hanging around a hospital all day? Getting ready for the wedding, so you're here for a premarital checkup at the urologist?" Thomas was coolly indifferent. He glanced at Alex, his tone dripping with disdain. "You seem very interested in my private life. Got a crush on me?" Alex snorted. "You're as narcissistic as ever, Mr. Grant." Thomas raised an eyebrow. He had clearly come prepared. Sure enough, the next second he said, "I'm not here to trade insults with you today. I brought someone for you to see." He beckoned toward the street. A man in simple clothes got out of a black Maybach. The man was very pale, with soft, delicate features. The moment Alex saw him, his expression changed. He turned to Thomas, his voice tight with rage. "What did you bring him here for?" Thomas looked down at me. "You're clinging to Larry purely to get back at me. Now I've brought your old flame back to you. Stay away from Larry from now on." Alex was trembling with anger. He took 2 steps forward, but before he could reach Thomas, the man who had just gotten out of the car rushed over and grabbed him. While Alex was tied up with the man, Thomas had already walked behind me. He took control of the wheelchair, turned me around, and pushed me forward. I looked back at Alex, but Thomas held me in place with one hand. "Don't disturb him. He's catching up with an old flame. He doesn't have time for you." Thomas pushed me for a long time, finally stopping in a quiet, secluded spot. He crouched down in front of me, meeting my gaze. "I hear you have amnesia. You don't remember anything?" Thomas's tone was flat, and his expression was unreadable. But I knew better. He was always like this. The calmer he seemed, the more unsettling it was, like the weather before a hurricane. Thomas was a psychopath. I've forgotten a lot of things. He chuckled softly, a hint of sadness appearing on his handsome face. "Even me?" I fought the urge to run, keeping my voice as steady as possible, trying not to let him see any hint of a lie. "I don't remember what happened before. Alex said your name is Thomas Grant." Our eyes met, and I added, "Did we know each other?" Thomas placed his hands on either side of my body, trapping me. He smiled. We slept together. Does that count? I suppressed the sudden wave of nausea in my stomach and turned my head, avoiding his probing gaze. I don't know what you're talking about. Thomas snorted and suddenly let me go. He turned and pointed to a deserted building in the distance. The building was 6 or 7 stories high. At that moment, a person was standing on the roof, holding a struggling kitten. What would happen if that little kitten accidentally fell? Thomas turned back to look at me. Larry, do you want to save her? If you can tell me the kitten's name, I'll save her for you. I looked at Thomas in disbelief. Are you insane? I'm not insane. Thomas smiled slightly. Larry, just tell me her name, and I'll save her for you. I closed my eyes, unable to suppress the fire in my chest. I slapped him across the face. Instead of getting angry, the smile on his face grew wider. Haven't been eating well, have you? How come you're so weak? I slapped him again with my other hand. Thomas just laughed even harder. He looked at me, his tone coaxing. Larry, what's her name? Do you remember? You don't have to do anything. Just say her name and you can save her. I looked up at the roof. The kitten was struggling more frantically now, and the person was only holding her with one hand, making my heart clench with fear. Thomas was a psychopath, but I wasn't. Thomas treated life as if it were worthless, but I was soft-hearted. Puffball. I spat the name out through gritted teeth. The smile on Thomas's lips deepened. He stood up. He cupped my face with one hand, toying with it ambiguously. Liar. I knew you didn't have amnesia. The way you look at me, how could you have forgotten me? Then he sighed. What a shame, Larry. By the time Alex found us, Thomas was holding my hand, asking me if it hurt. That punch didn't do much to me, but you hurt your own hand. Larry, let me put some ointment on it for you. I pulled my hand back and punched him in the left cheek. I didn't miss this time. I don't need your fake kindness. Thomas stood up with a smile. He pushed his cheek with his tongue and was about to say something when he saw Alex approaching out of the corner of his eye. He tilted his head and directed his anger at Alex instead. What are you doing here? Not gonna spend more time catching up with your old flame? Alex didn't look happy and didn't waste words. He walked straight to me and started pushing my wheelchair to leave. It's time to change your dressing. The doctor will be looking for you. Thomas stuck his foot out, blocking the wheelchair. Alex, I've been putting up with you for a long time out of respect for your grandfather. Are you still trying to cross me? Alex was unfazed, smirking coldly. I just called your fiancée and told her I saw you at the hospital, looking like you were injured. She should be here any minute now. You'd better think about how you're going to explain this to her. As soon as he finished, a clear voice called out, Thomas? Thomas froze. While he was stunned, Alex quickly pushed me away. I looked back and caught a brief glimpse of a beautiful, striking face. So that was Thomas's fiancée. She looked almost exactly as she did on TV. After the doctor finished changing my dressing, I glanced toward the door. The hallway outside the room was filled with security guards. Half were Alex's, half were Thomas's. Thomas's fiancée took him away, Alex said, handing me a glass of warm water. Do you want to know who that guy Thomas brought today was? I looked up at him. Without waiting for my response, Alex continued. He was, I guess, my ex-boyfriend. The first man I ever loved. My family and the Grants are old family friends, but Thomas and I have never gotten along. Ever since we were kids, we loved taking each other's things. You steal mine today, I steal yours tomorrow. Neither of us ever got the upper hand. Until Thomas discovered my secret, that I was in love with a man. Alex said that Thomas wasn't even into men back then. He only got close to the guy Alex liked to mess with him. Later, his lover fell for Thomas instead. Alex lost it and caused a huge scene. Somehow, the whole thing got back to Alex's father. Thomas had effectively outed him in public. After that, his family sent him abroad. The night of the car accident, I saw how much Thomas's housekeeper cared about you. You don't know, but that housekeeper basically raised Thomas. He doesn't care about anything besides Thomas. Seeing how worried he was about you, I knew you had to mean something special to Thomas. Alex suddenly stopped. I nodded, understanding. So you saved me because you planned to use me against Thomas? I didn't expect Alex to be so direct. He didn't hide his intentions at all, nodding in admission. That was the plan at first. At first? So what are you thinking now? Alex didn't answer my question. Instead, he smiled and asked me, Larry, if I were to call in this favor, would you be willing to help me deal with him? He looked at me, his eyes wide and unblinking, with a hint of anticipation in them. Anticipation for what? That I would help him go against Thomas? Unfortunately, I didn't have it in me. I don't think I can help you. As the words left my mouth, the light in Alex's eyes dimmed a little. I continued, I betrayed him before trying to escape. So now he's extremely wary of me. The light in Alex's eyes was like a flame even when it dimmed. It flared back up. It's okay. He smiled and moved closer to me. He sat on the edge of the bed, meeting my gaze. You can't help me, but I can help you. I can help you escape from Thomas. Alex said this with complete seriousness. It didn't sound like a joke at all. My life has been both very lucky and incredibly unlucky. Lucky because I've met very few bad people. In fact, my life has been full of kind ones. The very fact that I've grown up, been able to study, and go to college is all thanks to the help of those good-hearted people. Unlucky because I met Thomas Grant. I've always been quick to trust people and rarely put my guard up. To me, it felt like everyone in the world was a good person except for Thomas. Besides, Alex had really helped me a lot recently, and he had his own history with Thomas. I truly believed he would help me. If it were just me, I had no idea how I would ever escape Thomas. I've done well for myself abroad these past few years. Once we're out of the country, Thomas won't dare to touch you. As soon as your leg is healed, we'll leave this place. Alex's words were like a powerful shot of adrenaline, easily reigniting my hope for the future. Leave this place. Get away from Thomas. If only that could really happen. The day before I was supposed to be discharged, Alex and I had already left the hospital. According to the plan, Thomas would only find out the person in my hospital bed wasn't me when the doctor did his rounds, by which time Alex and I would already be on a plane. Unfortunately, on the way to the airport, we had an accident. When I woke up again, Thomas had already dragged me back to the villa. He held a bowl of food, trying to feed me. Eat something. You've lost so much weight recently. Seeing Thomas's face, the despair in my heart was bottomless. Of course, there was no way it would be that easy to escape. Thomas brought the spoon to my lips. Larry, eat, he commanded in a cold voice. My eyes snapped open. I knocked the bowl over and threw the soup all over him. Thomas's anger turned into a twisted smile. Your temper is getting worse and worse. Who else but me would tolerate you like this? His handsome face was particularly infuriating right now. I slapped him again. Get out. Thomas grabbed the hand I'd hit him with. Just as he was about to say something, I slapped him again with my other hand. I said, get out. This time he restrained both of my hands. Thomas's tone was one of exasperation. I just want you to eat. Can we talk about whatever it is after you've eaten? You'll be hungry if you don't eat. You're not well, your stomach will hurt again later. The housekeeper was already cleaning up the mess on the floor. Thomas glanced at the food-covered bed, then suddenly stood up and carried me out. Have the maids come and clean the bed immediately. Larry needs his afternoon nap. And bring another meal to the study. This time, Thomas didn't insist on feeding me himself. He placed me in a chair and motioned for me to eat on my own. I turned my head away, still refusing to eat. The plan had failed. I was too full of anger to even think about food. Thomas and I were at a standoff for a moment. He suddenly laughed coldly and approached me again. Fine. If you're not hungry, you don't have to eat. We can do something more stimulating. Once you've worked up an appetite, you can eat. He grabbed my jaw with one hand and covered my mouth with his, kissing me. His other hand deftly unbuttoned my pants. I panicked, struggling ceaselessly. It wasn't until I bit Thomas's lip, tasting blood, that he finally let me go. He frowned, licked the wound, and when he looked at me again, his eyes were even more frenzied. Larry, I'm willing to give you some freedom. You don't want to see me, so while you were in the hospital, I only came to see you secretly after you fell asleep. I let you make friends, even when that friend was my sworn enemy. I still let you. You want to run, you want to cause trouble, I can play along. If you had run away by yourself, I would have even let you. I'd have let you escape to a place you liked. You could live there, and I would visit you occasionally. But why did you have to run away with Alex? That's not running away, that's eloping. How long have you even known him, Larry? Longer than you've known me? You were going to elope with him abroad, thinking I'd never find you, is that it? Thomas's smile was sick and mocking. In your dreams. For the rest of your fucking life and the next and for all eternity you are bound to me. No one else gets to even look at you. As he spoke, his hands resumed their assault. He ripped my pants off and threw them aside. I wasn't idle either. I beat his face until it was red and swollen, my fists landing on him again and again. Every punch was thrown with all my might. I kicked Thomas away, but he crawled back toward me. Every time you hit me, I get so turned on. It's even better than fucking you. Fucking pervert. He was a psycho. My attacks grew more vicious, but Thomas remained relentless. I bumped into a nearby bookshelf, and a box fell from it. The box wasn't locked. Its contents scattered all over the floor. There was the ring I had thrown away, a rusted utility knife, a broken lock, and other things. Seeing those items was like a spell had been cast on Thomas. He finally let go of me and started picking them up, one by one, and putting them back in the box. When he saw I was about to run, Thomas grabbed my ankle and dragged me back. He held up the ring. Do you remember this? You bought it for me with the money you earned from your part-time job. Later you took it back and threw it away like trash. You say you don't want it, you just throw it away. You're like that with the ring, and you're like that with me. I couldn't bear to lose it. I searched all night to find it. Then he picked up the utility knife. This is the knife you used to cut me. He pulled up his shirt sleeve, revealing several old scars. They've all healed. I thought the unhappy things between us would heal like the wounds on my body. But Larry, you insist on tearing open the scabs, time and time again, laying our bloody passed out in front of me. And this lock, this is the lock you broke. I did terrible things to you in the past, but you betrayed me once too, didn't you? We're even, right? Larry, we're even. Thomas whined like a scorned lover, listing my past grievances one by one. I looked at the lock. He used to use it to lock a cabinet, and I had picked it open. That was years ago. Back then, one of his business rivals had offered to help me escape in exchange for me stealing a file. That file caused the Grant family a massive loss, and Thomas was almost beaten to death by his father. In Thomas's mind, he had hurt me, and I had betrayed him. So we were even. So I should stay by his side, be imprisoned by him, be humiliated by him. But many things in this world can't be settled with an eye for an eye. Besides, I never wanted to be even with him. All I wanted was to leave. I just wanted to get away from him. There was a commotion downstairs. I heard Alex's voice. Thomas, who had just calmed down, started to spiral again the moment he heard Alex. How long have you two known each other? And he's already in love with you. Thomas pushed me down onto the carpet. Larry, sometimes I just want to ruin that face of yours, make people afraid of you so they won't try to take you from me. So you'll finally be mine. Hearing the footsteps getting closer outside, and the housekeeper trying to stop Alex, Thomas became even more excited. Baby, be good. Don't let him hear. His hands roamed, trampling my dignity under his feet. If he saw you like this, do you think Alex would still love you? He was threatening me, using my own dignity to threaten me. I slapped him across the face and suddenly screamed toward the door. Alex, I'm in. A flash of shock crossed Thomas's face before he lunged forward to cover my mouth. But it was too late. The door to the study was smashed open by Alex. Compared to my disheveled state, Thomas was impeccably dressed, aside from the bruises I'd given him. But when the door was broken down, he seemed even more flustered than I was. He reacted quickly. Before I could even see who was outside, Thomas had already grabbed a blanket and thrown it over me. I couldn't see his expression, but I heard his hoarse voice, almost a roar. as he yelled at the people at the door, "Get out." The study was in chaos. My clothes were still on the floor. The noisy doorway suddenly fell silent. Alex rushed in, grabbed Thomas by the collar, and called him a monster. "Are you even fucking human? You're engaged. Why can't you just let him go? What do you think Larry is?" The two of them started brawling. Thomas was not one to take a loss. For every punch Alex threw, Thomas gave a kickback, releasing all the pent-up anger from my earlier beating onto Alex. "My business with Larry is none of your damn business." He straddled Alex, his hands closing around his throat. "You wanted to take him abroad? You think I can't do anything to you once you're out of the country? Alex, you're such a naive idiot." The two of them were at each other's throats, every blow landing with brutal force, each wishing the other dead. I curled up under the blanket, suddenly feeling so tired. The housekeeper called security guards up. After they separated the two, they threw Alex out. Dinner was brought to the bedroom again. This time, I didn't refuse. I quietly ate every bite. I hadn't eaten all day, and I was genuinely hungry now. A person has to eat to have the strength to do other things. Otherwise, even your punches feel like you're just tickling someone. In the middle of the night, my legs started to ache again. It was probably going to rain. That time I stole the file, I had almost made it out. I was halfway there, almost out of the city, but Thomas's men still caught up and dragged me back. Thomas was furious that time. I don't know if he was more angry that I betrayed him or that I tried to run. He broke my right leg with his own hands. "I broke your leg. Let's see you try to run now." He was so unpredictable. He was the one who broke my leg, but he was also the one who flew in specialists from abroad to fix it. An arm suddenly draped over my waist. Thomas's steady breathing was right by my ear. I carefully pushed his arm off and sat up. At dinner, I had secretly hidden a fork under the bed. The housekeeper didn't seem to notice when he cleared the dishes. I leaned over the side of the bed, found the steel fork, and gripped it in my hand. Then I crept around to Thomas's side of the bed. As I plunged it down toward him, I didn't hesitate for a second, but I still failed. Thomas's eyes snapped open, and he threw up a hand to block it. The fork only pierced his palm. Blood dripped onto his face as he stared at me, his expression wounded. "You want me to die?" Thomas's voice trembled, tears welling in his eyes. He looked devastated, like some innocent damsel in distress from a TV show who'd had her heart broken. But he was no damsel. He was an unforgivable, well-disguised demon. Seeing him like this didn't make me feel sorry for him. It only made me feel more disgusted. I closed my eyes in disappointment. I pulled the fork out and was about to go back to sleep. Thomas suddenly lunged like a mad dog and grabbed my wrist. "Do you hate me that much?" I was annoyed, not even bothering to look back at him. "I hate you. You've known that for a long time, haven't you?" Thomas gripped me tighter. As I struggled, I lost my footing and fell. The fork, carried by inertia, flew toward my own body. Thomas frantically threw himself forward, intercepting it with his hand. His hand, already punctured, now had several new holes. "If you can't kill me, you'll just destroy yourself, is that it?" Thomas snatched the fork from my hand, looking terrified. "Idiot. It was just an accident." I never thought of punishing myself just because he was a psycho. But in that moment, I realized that if I agreed with him, it would hurt Thomas even more. I wiped the blood off my face and smiled, nodding. "Yeah. Being with you is worse than death." Thomas looked like a dog whose tail had just been stepped on. He let out a crazed laugh, his hands closing around my neck. "Do I disgust you that much? This afternoon, too. You'd rather let them see you in that state than not call Alex in. You hate me and you like him, is that it?" I slapped him across the face. It wasn't enough. I slapped him again on the other side. "What is with you? On steroids or something?" After being hit, Thomas loosened his grip on my neck. He started to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I kicked him in the chest, pushing him further away. "This is your house. How could Alex have gotten up here if you didn't let him? Thomas, you just wanted people to see me humiliated by you, didn't you? I gave you what you wanted, so what are you pretending for?" Thomas stared at me, his lips trembling. No, I was just trying to scare you. I didn't mean for what he meant. I couldn't and didn't want to know. But the result was the same. I was tired. I didn't want to waste any more words on him. These past few days, I'd been constantly tired and had no appetite. I threw up more than Thomas managed to force down my throat. Thomas was terrified. He brought a doctor to the house. The doctor tried to talk to me, but I was too tired. I just wanted to sleep. As the doctor was leaving, I heard Thomas whisper to him outside the door. He tried to stab himself with a fork a few days ago. I buried my head under the covers, sinking back into a groggy haze, and cursed him for being an idiot. One day, after getting an injection, I felt a bit more clear-headed. Thomas said he was willing to let me go out. I have no idea what that doctor said to him to cause such a sudden change. You can go wherever you want, see whoever you want. Larry, I've already called off the engagement. Thomas watched me cautiously, afraid to miss the slightest change in my expression. But I remained listless, completely uninterested in what he was saying. It turned out Thomas wasn't lying about letting me go out. From then on, I would leave at 10 in the morning, have lunch outside, and come home at 5 in the afternoon. I had to eat dinner with him. Thomas would ask me where I went and what I did. I wouldn't speak, wouldn't acknowledge him, just kept my head down and ate. He wouldn't fly off the handle like he used to, but I could tell he was still angry. He just didn't show it in front of me. I was sitting in a mall cafe after buying a coffee when a beautiful girl suddenly sat down across from me. She looked familiar. I quickly realized she was Thomas's fiancée. I've always been curious why Thomas would risk offending my family to break off the engagement. But now that I see you, I suddenly get it. Larry, you're really handsome. Even better than in the pictures. At first, I thought she was here to cause trouble. But her unexpected words left me bewildered and at a loss. Hi, my name is Carrie. I used to be Thomas's fiancée. I nodded. Hi. Then I looked behind me. There was no one suspicious there. But I knew Thomas had people following me every day. I knew that feeling of being watched the moment I stepped outside all too well. Carrie followed my gaze. Don't worry, they're far enough away. They can't hear us. She suddenly leaned forward, getting closer to me. Larry, I heard from Alex that you don't like Thomas. That he's forcing you, keeping you prisoner, right? I looked into Carrie's gossipy eyes and said nothing. Carrie continued, let me help you escape. Her expression was completely serious. Carrie was a very pretty girl who spoke in a cute way. I could tell she meant me no harm. But I didn't understand why she wanted to help me. To be honest, I never really liked Thomas that much. I only agreed to the engagement because he's good-looking. Carrie giggled. Families like ours always have strategic marriages. Of course, I had to pick a handsome one. But you're even hotter than him, hee, so I want to help you. With that, Carrie picked up my coffee. Since I'm helping you, I'll go home and draw up a detailed escape plan for you. Don't worry, Larry. With a face like yours, I wouldn't hurt you. Suddenly, she splashed the coffee she was holding all over me and said viciously, just putting on a show. Those guys over there are still watching. I sat there stunned. I sat alone in the mall for a long time before I finally got up and left. On my way back, I ran into Alex near Thomas's villa. He was waiting for me. Seeing the coffee stain on my clothes, Alex asked, "Did Carrie find you?" I nodded. "Thomas broke up with her because of you, so she's mad and took it out on you. But she's not a bad person. Don't worry about it." "Yeah," I said, smiling a little at the thought of Carrie. "I know." Alex added, "I've already made a plan. Next Friday, after you leave the house, I'll get you out of here. I won't let you down this time." Then he left. At dinner, Thomas asked me, "Did you have fun today?" I continued to eat, ignoring him. "Carrie found you?" He put down his chopsticks. "Larry, I already broke off the engagement with her. If she's giving you trouble, I'll get revenge for you." I gave him a quick glance. I suddenly lost my appetite. "You had me followed?" Thomas explained in a panic. "It's not following. It's just to protect you. I won't interfere with where you go or who you see." He forced a smile. "You met with Alex on your way back." I didn't say anything, did I? "So what did you want to say?" The smile on Thomas's face finally crumbled. "Larry." I ignored him and went upstairs. It was very late when Thomas came back to the room. He hugged me, and I could smell the faint scent of tobacco on him. I don't smoke and I hate the smell. In the past, even if Thomas smoked, he would wait for the smell to fade before coming back to the room. He must have been really pissed off by me tonight to have stayed outside for so long, and still reek of it. Larry, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you earlier. He buried his head in the crook of my neck. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I didn't see Carrie again for a few days. She pulled me into a stall in the men's restroom. She showed me her plan. Tomorrow is Friday. Thomas has a very important business event. Make sure you follow my plan. Okay. I nodded. I looked at her gratefully. Tomorrow was Friday, which was also the day of Alex's plan. After giving me her instructions, Carrie prepared to leave. I stopped her. After I'm gone, will you still marry Thomas? Carrie looked at me, confused. What? You like him? You don't want me to marry him? I quickly explained, no. I just think you're a really good person, and I don't want you to be held back by an asshole like Thomas. Carrie smiled and patted my shoulder. Don't worry. After seeing you, I'm confident I can find an even hotter guy to marry. She turned to leave again. After a few steps, Carrie looked back at me. By the way, don't trust Alex too much either. It's best not to tell him about our plan. There are no good people in this circle. Besides, he has a grudge against Thomas. Who knows when he might stab you in the back? She pouted, pretending to think. But don't trust me too much either. I don't think I'm a good person either. I smiled. I watched her leave. When it was time, I went back as usual. I ate dinner, showered, and curled up in bed. Thomas hugged me from behind. Larry, can you smile at me? Like you did back in college. Like you used to love me. When your eyes would overflow with laughter whenever you saw me. You loved me so much back then. I knew it. You never used the card I gave you. You had no money, but you still saved up to buy me a birthday present. Can you just love me again? I swear I won't let you down this time. Actually, I was so happy when I heard you had amnesia. I thought you had really forgotten our ugly past. I thought we could start over, but it was all just a lie. Larry, can we start over now? I'll never get married. You can't get married either. Can we just be together forever? Thomas rambled on and on. I fell asleep in the middle of the night, only to be woken up by him again. He hadn't touched me in a long time. Lately, I often heard him getting up in the middle of the night to take a cold shower. I blearily opened my eyes, then closed them again. I pulled the covers over my head and fell back asleep. When Thomas came back, he brought a chill with him. He pulled me into his arms and sighed in my ear. Larry, I love you so much now. Please have some pity on me. Just stay with me, okay? The room was silent, save for the ticking of the clock. Thomas's words were met with no response. When I woke up, Thomas was long gone. The housekeeper looked at me, seeming to want to say something. In the end, he said nothing, just smiled as he always did and saw me out. Be careful on the road, sir. The young master said today is his birthday and asked you to come back early. He's gonna cook for you tonight. I nodded and left. Carrie's plan said a car would come to pick me up after I left the house. As I turned the corner, a car suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and the people inside dragged me in. The young miss sent us to get you out of here. Hearing that, I stopped struggling. The whole way was a wild, high-profile affair. It didn't feel like an escape at all, but it was very much Carrie's style. I couldn't help but laugh. When we arrived, the driver pointed to a car up ahead. The young miss said, "You know how to drive. From here, you drive yourself. If we take you any further, we might be exposed." Just as I got out of the car, Alex suddenly appeared. I frowned and stood still, not understanding why he was here. I looked around. He seemed to be alone. I watched him warily. Alex smiled and walked toward me. "You didn't follow my plan. Is it because you don't trust me?" "No," I said after a moment, explaining if I escaped, you would be the first person Thomas would suspect. He would definitely investigate you. That's too risky for both of us. Alex nodded with a smile. "You're right. Leaving without my involvement is the safest option for you." He didn't blame me for wasting his efforts. nor did he resent my earlier suspicion. Alex was a good person, too. He just said, "Larry, I wish we had met before you met Thomas." But the word if is a fallacy in itself. There are no ifs in life. Are you going somewhere you can tell me about? When things calm down here, I'd like to find you. Alex's eyes were full of hope, but my only response was silence. It wasn't because of what Carrie said about not trusting Alex. It was because I probably already knew how Alex felt about me. I knew I couldn't give him what he wanted, and I knew what the future held for me. Alex was a good person. He didn't deserve to be let down by me again. I understand. A smile spread across his face. He handed me the travel bag he was carrying. "You might need the things in here later. Take it. Larry, if I ever see you again after today, I hope you won't refuse me then. If we meet again, it'll be fate." Alex opened the car door and pushed me in. "Go now. If I could track you here, so can Thomas. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late." He waved at me. "Have a safe trip." I nodded. I followed the route Carrie had planned, driving straight ahead, until Thomas stopped me by destroying his own car. He had come alone, too. Thomas was badly hurt. He crawled out of his car and lay in the middle of the road, looking at me. "Larry, if you want to leave, you'll have to run me over and kill me." I gripped the steering wheel and couldn't help but curse under my breath. Then I pushed the car door open. Seeing me walk toward him, Thomas started to both cry and laugh. "Larry, save me. It hurts so much. I'm dying. Can you take me to the hospital?" I didn't say a word. I picked him up and dragged him to the side of the road. Before Thomas could react, I got back in the car and hit the gas. In the rearview mirror, Thomas couldn't even stand up. He could only scream at me in despair before finally passing out. In my second month in a foreign country, I received an anonymous email from back home. This was how Carrie and I communicated. The emails were completely anonymous, with no way to be traced. Carrie wrote, "After Thomas was rescued, I had the doctor add something to his medication. By the time he woke up, you were long gone and safe. After you left, he investigated Alex from top to bottom but found nothing. His right leg is fractured. It was treatable, but he refused treatment, so now it's permanently disabled. Seeing him walking with a cane, I suddenly realized he's not that handsome anymore. Nowhere near as handsome as you. By the way, Alex came to thank me for some reason before he went abroad. Do you think he knows I helped you escape? But even if he knows, who cares? My dad's a big deal. No one would dare do anything to me. Since leaving the country, I had moved from one place to another. I had gone through several identities. Now, as long as I didn't reveal myself, not even Carrie could find me." I replied to Carrie with a laughing emoji. Then I deleted the email. I stepped out of the small cabin and took a deep breath, looking out at the endless snowfield. The air was so cold it made me cough for a long time. The Siberian husky that had been sleeping nearby heard me and immediately ran back, pouncing into my arms. He wagged his tail, playing with me. When we were tired, we lay down in the snow together. A light snow began to fall again. Snowflakes settled all over me. I smiled and let out a breath. "This is nice." The dog didn't understand what I said. He just panted, looked at me and wagged his tail nonstop. I hugged him and murmured again, "This is so nice. Freedom, it feels so good."